you want to, can
Preparing
you
the
send me a
screen.
link? Can you send me a link for that?
Just go to YouTube and search for Talking Tesla, you piece of piss.
Yeah,
Actually,
Google
Hey,
will
you
send you.
all, we decided
Google.
at the last minute to stream live on Talking Tesla YouTube channel, comma, check it out, unrehearsed and raw, exclamation point.
Super upsetting.
Children should not apply.
Copy streaming link. Okay, in the chat, I'm going to give you the streaming link, but if you turn the audio on, you're going to get yourself 5 minutes in the past. There you go. In the link, in the thing. Oh, look, it's up on our YouTube. We're live.
The spontaneity
Upsetting.
of
Now I've lost it. Gosh.
lost it.
Oh, hey, I've lost it. You know, you just swipe the wrong way on an iPad and you're gone for good.
You're so high-tech.
Let's do the pre-show, which is, what are we talking about on this show?
To stream live.
I'm trying to find this stream page at the moment. That says like Tesla. What is this? Why is somebody else?
If you look in the
YouTube channel.
Look in the chat on Zoom. I put the link in there.
No, but I can't look in the chat on Zoom because I'm on my phone on Zoom.
Oh, come on.
It's okay. I'll you know what, dude?
Text
I
it?
can figure this out because I do this for a living, it turns out. Just for the record, I'm just going to see. I've already found it. Oh, look, there I am. All right. Well, YouTube Nation, here we are live on whatever this thing is. I've heard of this new fancy thing that everybody's using to go to work now called the interwebs and the internets. And so everybody does their meeting. So we decided we would do the show live on YouTube just as well. And today on the show, today is Talking Tesla 173. This is a regular show, so everybody gets this one, not just for the Patreon people who send us money. And since it's May, that means Laney 9300 is the referral code to use. So if you guys are wondering, it's been a while. I know you're out there and I know you're buying cars. And so go to Laney 9300 as the however you do that promo code for buying yourself a Tesla. And I promise you, I will be grateful. I promise you that.
That's right. And if you happen to want some arachnid wheels, let me know, or you could let Tom know as well.
You definitely let me know. Mine are currently available on eBay if you're out there listening. And so we're going to talk about oil prices mostly, and how, well, if we would have all made better choices 10 years ago, we wouldn't be in this trouble with our oil economy, but we are. And then we're going to talk about the Gigafactory 3 in Shanghai. And then we're going to, what everybody's really here for is the earnings call, the Tesla earnings call. Now,
I'm here to talk about how psychotic Elon has been in the last week. He needs his meds.
Yeah, and the smallest part of the Tesla earnings call is earnings. Interestingly enough, they don't actually talk about earnings very much. They talk a little bit Q over Q and Y over Y and all that other lingo to try to distract us from the other insanity that's happening inside their heads. But we know what's going on.
You know,
Luckily,
okay, let's
it
talk
have
about
some
the
And then we're going to talk about some autonomous driving. Rob's got some RoboCab information to talk about. Supercharger update, I'm sure. And then, are we really going to talk about this bamboo colony on Mars? That'll be fun.
That was old. That was like an old story we never actually ever talked about. We could.
I looked at it. It's pretty cool. I highly recommend checking it out.
Well, we can announce it.
And then we're going to do some media picks. And then we're going to talk about the referral code again, Laney 9300. We're going to talk about that a lot, I have a feeling, especially since we're live on YouTube. And there's probably ones of people watching.
6 people minus us 3. There's 3 people watching it.
Oh,
this is a great idea.
And one of them, I believe, is my friend Paul. So if you're out there listening, Paul, how you doing, buddy? You're probably not going to buy a Tesla using my referral code. So whatever.
I'm still trying to share this on Twitter right now.
Oh, no one even knows yet. That's why no one's watching. And that's it. That's what we're going to talk about today.
We just want to get a few people in the chat room chatting. So
Yeah.
let's talk about this oil thing. And what does it mean for oil to be negative?
Hold on
They're
1 second
paying
before you
people?
start, Mel, because we have to make sure that Robert has actually started recording.
Yeah, let me double check that since I've got my
Oh.
recorder right here.
I
And
just
it looks like
assumed-
it's going. I have 25 hours left on the card. So we won't have the same problem that I had last week.
Well, so you
or last
say.
show.
So you say. Although we didn't do should we do a clap sync? Because this is
Yeah,
really
we
the
should.
start of the show, or should
Yeah.
we just keep going, Mel?
No, I think EJ has a special machine that works out how to sync it.
Oh,
It's
wow.
a machine.
Special EJ machine. I heard
Wow.
today that New Zealand is basically coronavirus free. Is that true?
Yeah, they're not completely 100% without cases, but they're so low they can very easily do contact tracing. Australia is close behind, and they're going to probably open up between each other, but keep out the filthy, filthy Americans for quite a while.
I was going to say, is it time to get a cheap flight to New Zealand? I hear the airlines are looking for customers.
Yeah, if you want to go somewhere where there's not much coronavirus, that's the place to go. They crushed the curve in New Zealand. They put in really, really strict stay-at-home rules, way stricter than here, and they did it earlier, and they basically squish. But of course, that means, like the rest of us, they're going to be quite susceptible for the second wave. And the filthy Americans, when they come to see the hobbits bringing their coronavirus, upsetting. But tell me why oil went negative, and what does that mean?
Well,
Yeah,
the problem with oil isn't in the oil. Well, there's two problems with the oil situation, right? Oil, I don't know if you guys knew this, the world, the globe is massive, right? Really big place. And all of the oil is like inside of it. It's inside the ground, right? And then, so what happens is then they take the oil out and they got to put it somewhere, right? They got to put it in tanks, and they got to put it in ships. And if they don't do that, really terrible things happen to, like, you got two options. You leave the oil in the ground, or you take the oil out of the ground and then you put it in things like, again, storage containers or your gas tank or tankers or airplanes. So all of the things that we are not currently using anymore, such as factories and airplanes and automobiles and all that other stuff, that's where all that oil goes. So we only have a certain amount of, let's call it, storage capability for this oil. And then, so they're like, oh crap. And if you, for people who are fracking, especially fracking, this is one of the issues, is if they stop taking the oil out of the ground during the fracking period, or whatever the hell you want to call it, it has a tendency to potentially damage the wells irreparably. So then they won't be able to get oil out even in the future. So they don't necessarily want to stop and cap those wells and stop the process that's begun. But like, there's only so many peanut butter jars you can keep your oil in, is kind of how it works. At some point,
keep oil in peanut butter jars. That's very.
Oh, you do if you're in Texas and you keep getting oil taken out of the ground. You for sure do that now.
Yeah, in this article that I found online on CNBC, it was impressive. They had a photograph that I never prodded over, but I have it on my laptop, a photograph of oil tankers as far as the eye can see, lined up off the coast of Long Beach. And you can look at, most of them are full because you can see where the water line is on the boat. And where the water line is really high means the boat's really full. Yeah. And so all of these boats are stuck waiting to unload. And it said in the article that typically they charge about $25,000 a day to transport oil. I think that's just the standing still price for the boats, but they're charging upwards of $250,000 because they can't continue to make money. They can't dump the oil or whatever, offload the oil, and then turn around and go back and get a bunch more. They can't do what they need to do to pay their bills and their mortgages and such.
And there's 40 billion barrels of oil on its way from Saudi Arabia currently that had been ordered a long time ago. So it's this whole process, right? And the refiners, they can, it either has to be stored or refined. And if once it's refined, then it turns into gas. So you can't necessarily store that indefinitely. So it's super problematic. And like I said, people are like, well, I have all this oil, I need to put it somewhere. Like most people do this, they either make oil or they store oil or they turn oil into things, not really all of those things. So if you're making oil like from the ground, you don't have any place to put it. Like you build a pipeline and you try to get it the hell out of here. And especially in the States, because of fracking, we are a big time oil producer now, and it's problematic.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we take the tankers, go back to the ports that they came from, where the pipe is that fills up the oil tanker, turn the motors backwards,
Brilliant.
suck the oil off there back and push it back into the earth where it should stay so we don't burn it and we don't get global warming, and that will give the people something to do. How's that? Okay.
That's a fine idea. I believe that there's a lot of pressure underground. Like that's how the oil comes up. So like putting things back into a high pressure environment, probably pretty complicated. Now we do have strategic petroleum reserves in this country that are apparently very, very full at the moment. Yeah. But I'll tell you this, if, at one point, like, wasn't oil like minus 30, like they were paying you $37 a barrel to take oil?
Yeah. So
that seems like a pretty good deal if you were not an environmentalist. So like, I'll take $37 million and a million barrels of oil. Can you guys throw them in the backyard or something? I don't know what you do with $1 million, but at some point they'll be valuable again. No?
Yeah. I mean, in May, the May oil futures did dip, included a graph there, and ended up at like $12 a barrel at the end of last week. And they're saying that June oil will likely dip again to maybe as much as negative $100 a barrel, which—
Negative $100.
Correct. In other words, it'll cost you a shit ton of money to store that oil somewhere. And
not to store it, that's to sell it. That's what.
Well, I mean, it's like, basically storage costs. It's going to be.
If the three of us could figure out how to build one of those big giant places to hold oil, we would be in business. Although we'd be in a business that would make us feel bad.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to do that business. But this—
Can we do it for like a month?
How long do you think this slowdown is going to hold oil prices down? But the other thing is—
6 months at least.
Yeah, so you have to have a lot of peanut butter jars. So the question is, will such a price in the negative area hold the Saudis from pumping out more oil and all of those wells that they can shut off? I mean, if you drive out to Bakersfield, there's again another F ton of wells out there, and they have those things that go up and down and up and down, and they're actually sucking the oil out. So those wells, maybe they could stuff it back in there. Maybe that would be
if you're not fracking it, I think that's possible to stop those wells. But I'll be honest with you, gentlemen. You two are doctors, and you know a whole lot about like surviving people and helping them live. And I don't know that. And not one of us is in the oil business. So we really actually have no idea what you do with oil. So, I mean, who knows what you can, like, I don't know because they're pumping water or other things in there to bring the oil to the top, right? They're doing all kinds of things to add pressure, because you can't just like indefinitely lower the oil table, right? Otherwise it becomes too expensive to get out of there. You have to put more and more pipe and more pressure to get it up. So you're pumping all kinds of other things. My guess is like, I don't know, sand. What was that?
Like ground up kittens, I think.
Oh, ground up kittens. Okay, that's cool. Maybe that's where all the like old socks that you lose in the laundry, like the single socks, maybe they go and they shred them and they put them in the ground.
We already talk about that. Don't fuck with cats. I thought that was a month or two ago.
Don't mess with the cats. So I don't know, but it's kind of, is it good or is it bad is the question for you guys.
I have a big fear. And that is, if someone not so scrupulous will say, wow, negative 50 or negative $100 a barrel. In other words, you're going to pay me. You've got 50,000 barrels, and at negative $100 a barrel, you're going to pay me be like $5 million. I'll take all your oil, and then dumps it somewhere, like in the ocean.
Well, you can't do that because the EPA is going to like hit you with like at least a
EPA doesn't exist
$50 fine.
everywhere. It doesn't exist everywhere.
I guess that's true, but I'm not concerned about that. I'm not concerned about that particular situation. And you can't build storage facilities that quickly, for sure, right?
Unless it's an open pit in some third world country where people don't have energy and they don't have oil and what have you. I mean, this is all unrefined. So this stuff is not that easy to use. It's dirty and it's got, it's mixed up. I don't know how much you can even burn it, but my worry is that if somebody's going to be unscrupulous. And
apparently you didn't watch the Iraq war. It burns pretty nicely, bro. Right out of the ground.
Well, it depends. I mean, there's different kinds of crude oil, but
did you not see the oil fields on fire? That was all crude oil on fire, Robert. It burns. Like I'm saying, it burns.
Or was that gas?
It was for oil fields. Well, were you asleep in the 90s?
Chemistry. There was a lot of different forms of oil. And so it's not a generic product is all I'm saying, is that there's different types. And definitely the methane that comes out first will definitely burn. But some of this stuff you can't light it up that easily. But anyway.
It's like the tar and the tar sands. I've tried to light that up at the beach, when you've got your little lens and it burns a little bit, but you've got to put a lot of energy in to get it. Anyway, I think we've spoken enough about oil. I don't care about oil, but it is interesting what will happen. Like, will the tar sand places close down because nobody wants oil? That would be great. Will this be the end of oil as we know it? A number of people have suggested that this is going to collapse that industry. Or is it just a pause and then it'll come roaring back in a year or two when the economy comes back, or 3? We'll see.
I mean, I think
my fear is that the price is so depressed for so long that people are like, wow, gas is $2.50. I'm going to need a Suburban. I'm going to need a big SUV. I'm going to go get an F-150. And then we're going to get back on the same, those cars are going to last 5 or 10 or 15 years. Now, the interesting thing is if we weren't, again, in an oil, at least oil for transportation. Again, I don't know how much this would have changed if we had gone to let's say 80% electric vehicles. It wouldn't have been, maybe we have more storage capacity because that storage capacity would have still existed in some ways. I don't know, but we still would be using petrol for jet fuel is my guess, and for other kind of chemicals and diesel fuel and stuff like that. Although, again, we could really use an electric semi at this point as well. So there were a lot of things, but and on the negative side, you're going to get a lot of small businesses who are involved in the oil business, especially in the Southwest, going out of business, going bankrupt. That's not good because there's a human cost to this. And we know that. And we've talked ad nauseum about making a smart transition. And now, unfortunately, we didn't. And we're in this catastrophic situation. And the transition is going to be very bad for a lot of people.
Yeah.
The last time we had an oil problem, we didn't have enough, and we said we were going to become energy independent. We were going to do solar panels, and that was in the 1970s when they opened up the strategic oil reserve. And now we have a problem because we have too much oil because of a pandemic. And after this, we're going to get our act together and get renewable energy, right?
But that's what caused this. That's that link. So there was a daily, the New York Times Daily podcast about oil.
I listened to it. I was going to reference it.
This is the exact link to that's causing this today. Because of that oil crisis, we started making our own oil, and that has led to us being actually a bigger oil producer than Saudi Arabia at times. And now we don't have any place to put it all. So we have all our own oil. We have all these people contracting to buy Saudi oil for God knows what reason, probably political, if I had to guess. So it's super challenging.
Can we please stop talking about oil? I feel dirty. Just feel dirty talking about it.
All right. What do you want?
I can talk about my Model 3 with version 20.12.6 that stops at stoplights and is terrible and is definitely beta, and don't use it unless you are fully engaged. I could say that.
So you have 20 which?
20.12.6.
Okay, so you're like you're a 0.5 ahead of me, but you also have paid for the FSD, so you have features that I don't have available to me. I still don't see cones. I don't see lights. So do you, the physicality of the lights and all that, you see them, but it doesn't work very well?
Well, it's definitely beta. And so what it's doing, it's using the humans to train how this should work. So as you're coming up to a stoplight, whether it's green or red, doesn't matter, it'll tell you, I'm going to stop in 600 feet. I'm going to stop in 300 feet. I'm going to stop in 100 feet. And you're supposed to put your foot on the accelerator or on the autopilot stick to tell it, no, don't stop, or yeah, that's fine if you don't do anything. So the idea is if the light is red, you just do nothing and the car will come to a stop by itself. If the light is green, you say, no, you can keep going, car. But it's confusing to the human, at least this human, because if you see that the light is green and you don't want to stop, and 600 feet out, I say, no, keep going, click. It says, it asks me again at 400 feet, you sure? Yes, click. And at 100 feet, and it can get really irky jerky, like stop that. And so I've had to turn it off because like, this is so far in beta, I can't take it. Let the other humans train the thing. I can't.
That sounds horrible. That sounds like a horrible experience.
Yours is
it's
12.6. I just want to confirm that.
Yes.
12.6. There's a number of YouTubers out there that have done videos and found the same thing. It's just like, when is the best time to tell it I don't want it to stop? Because if you tell too early, it's just going to keep asking.
I don't know. I watched Black Tesla, and he did a good overview of it. And it didn't seem like he had so many issues, although he did mention that it was fatiguing to be constantly having to be engaged. Well, you should be if you're driving a freaking car, but having to be engaged at a particular point before the stop street or before the stop light. But I'm curious because right now, my car had 12.5. So I was one behind you. But now, just before I got on the call, it started updating, and I think it should have the 12.11.1. 2020 12.11.1. So maybe it's a little better. I don't know what the difference is going to be.
And you have FSD in your car as well on the 3, correct?
Yeah, I rented FSD. I have a subscription.
Really? That doesn't exist.
That's not a thing, but
No,
we're going to talk about it.
Not yet. Don't be confusing, Robert.
Well, you told us last show that you had your Model Y. So
well, last week I lied. This week
you're going to lie again.
I still don't have it. I check every day.
You know, it's interesting. I tried to pimp out a guy on from Tesla. It's interesting. They called me a few days ago and they tried to sell me a Model 3. They're like, you've had a reservation for a long time and we've been interested in why you haven't bought it. And, I'd like to talk to you about that. And I basically told the guy, it's interesting you're calling me because, and he was really nice. I just got my Model 3 maybe 2 months ago. And he was like, really? And it turns out they have like 2 email addresses for me. But we talked about it. And he said that they're actually still selling quite a few cars right now, even though the factory is shut down. He told me that they actually pumped as many cars out of the factory before the shutdown as possible. Usually they do that, at the end of the quarter. Right. And he explained that, typically at the beginning of the quarter, the cars that are going to be distributed out are the ones that are going to Europe and Australia. And then in the middle of the quarter, they're pumping out cars that are going to go to the East Coast. And at the end of the quarter are the cars that are going to stay on the West Coast. And so they were cranking at the end of the quarter, and all those cars were destined for California and the West Coast. And they continued as April 1st came, and they didn't shut the factory down, April 1st. It was about halfway through the month. So a lot of cars got produced, and he has got a lot of cars that he's ready to sell and deliver like pronto. So
did he have my Y?
Well, I asked about the Ys, and he didn't have the clue. He goes, if you guys watch, some of those people on YouTube or on Twitter, those guys maybe know before we know, because that's how we find out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Some of those guys.
Yeah, not us. Sometimes the Tesla doesn't know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, because about a week ago, I got a call from Tesla saying, "Oh, I can't wait to get you into your new X. The lease is up, and let's get you into your new X." I'm like, dude, the lease is up in a year and a half. You want to do what you did last time and forgive all of those months? And he's like, a year and a half? Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Like, yeah.
And if they said yes, Mel, what would you get?
I'd get a Y. Well, actually, the Y, I don't know. She wants to see the Y first and then compare, but I think that she'll get into the Y because the doors are not, she likes all of the internal space carriage, but it's not too much different between Y and X. It's a little less in the Y, but I think the normal doors in the back might suck her in, and I'd like it to suck her in because it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. And it's also crazy efficient. I got into a late night reading over the Octa bottle, Octa pump.
What are you drinking?
Yes. No, I wasn't drinking, but I was drinking the Kool-Aid and reading about this new heat and cooling management system that's in the Y, and it's quite impressive. They're saying that that design, which is different than the 3 and the S and the X, that design of the Octa cooling system is what's going to give the car a 10% efficiency boost. So that's why the range and the efficiency in like miles per kilowatt of the Y can match the 3. That's pretty impressive.
It's super impressive. And he wants to now make that sort of HVAC system thing and put it into houses.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Not to mention on the space station and all that good stuff.
It is actually kind of stunning to have that car that's significantly bigger and taller and heavier and just as efficient as a Model 3.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But you don't have it yet.
Nearly as efficient. I don't have it. 316 miles rated range is what they're talking about. Did you hear Elon talk about the Model S rated range and the little peeing match he's having with the EPA? So the EPA gave the new S with all its fixed magnets and all improvements in the motors 391 miles rated range, which is fantastic. It's amazing. But Elon said they screwed up. They left the door open. They left the keys out of the car. So the car thought, oh, I'm supposed to be waiting for you to come, and it was burning some kilowatts. And they did that overnight. If they hadn't have done that, it would have been over 400 miles. Well, the EPA came out today or yesterday and said, that's not true. So who's lying?
That they didn't leave the doors open?
Right.
My guess is Elon knows if they left the doors open, all you have to do is look at your app. Well, hey, why'd they leave the damn doors open over there? Like,
it would be a very specific, very stupid lie.
On both of their parts.
Yeah, so somebody's wrong and the other one's a liar. So I think actually, although Elon is cycling up, and I think he is really quite manic right now, and I'm worried about him, that he goes through these cycles relatively frequently. Mm-hmm. I'm a bit worried about him, but I don't think that he is incorrect in this case. It's too specific. And the EPA, who knows, that they're going to test again after they get out of the pandemic.
And all of this you have to kind of take with a grain of salt, right? Because let's just say, for instance, it is 400 miles of rated range. That's if you are trip charging, which you shouldn't do very often anyways. You should charge to about 80%. So the practical day-to-day is still around 320.
Right.
For that car, right? I mean, I just want to make sure that we're not putting out all kinds of weird information out there.
No, but we get it. 400 is not 400. That's 400 if you drove at 50 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour. And most people could do that in the freeway.
Not even. I mean, that's like just using the EPA standard plan. But they're quibbling over 2% of battery, 2% of battery charge in this situation. And I agree, Tom. It's just it is splitting hairs. Although it's great for marketing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like 400 miles looks much better than 391 on a website. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's great, man. And psychologically, I'm like, yeah, 400 is way more than 391 because I'm not very bright and I can't do the math, but it's actually no different.
Yeah, it's a rounding difference.
Yeah.
Although, if you think about it, Tesla has been sort of like pushing the envelope to control cost, decrease build time. They've been doing some things that I'm not so cool on. So when I first got my 3 and I went into the frunk, right? I mean, How often do you guys use your frunk?
I use it
Almost
all.
never. When this is when I think about my frunk, is when I'm putting stuff in my trunk and I'm like, wow, this thing is really full. I should probably use the frunk, and I shove
Yes.
another thing in the trunk. That's
Right.
basically the extent of my frunk
Do
use.
you, Mel, do you still put your stinky golf shoes in the front?
I put my stinky golf shoes and my stinky golf cart, three-wheeled golf cart in the front.
Okay, so you have a specific purpose for it. Me, my frunk is empty right now. I think I might have moved the plugs, the charging apparatus.
Oh,
into
that's a
the
good idea.
frunk. Yeah, but I don't go in there very much at all. And so when I did, after I bought the car, I was like, wow, where's the carpet? They didn't put the carpet in the front. And then I looked and I saw there were these gaping openings where there used to be these flip down hooks for like bags, like for shopping bags in the front, which I thought was kind of cool. Honestly, would I ever use them? I don't know, maybe not. But the bottom line is like, what the hell's up with this? Why'd you take away these hooks? It looks unfinished. And why don't you put a carpet in there? And it turns out they're doing all this to save money.
Did they really take the carpet out? Because
Yeah.
I remember when you got the car, I opened it, I was like, how come you don't have carpet? You were like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? And I'm like, well, there's supposed to be carpet in here. So they really, like, that's an option?
Not
front
even an
carpeting?
option. Not even an option.
Just doesn't
that's
exist.
That's why Mark at RPM Tesla is all jazzed, because he's selling a piece of carpet. Forgot how much, $15 or something.
But if that's true, how much does that actually save them versus the amount of pushback and pissed offedness by not putting in a bit of shared capital? It probably costs 50 cents.
But if most people don't know it, if it costs, let's say overall it cost them $250 per, and they're about to make 20 million cars, that's walking around money for Elon. That's pretty good.
I actually had this discussion with Mark about those hooks, and I was like, I thought to myself, would I ever really use them? I mean, it might be kind of handy. It might be, but I just thought it looked unfinished without anything there, just this greasy kind of like head of a bolt. And so he was like, kind of shrugged it off and said, well, I'll be selling some soon on the RPM website, so whatever.
Yeah, that's great.
Classic. Okay, what else you got on here? You got your Gigafactory Shanghai, phase 2. Let's talk about that.
Phase 2 or phase 3?
We don't know. It's Gigafactory
3,
phase 2. There's this article in Tasmanian talks about phase 1.5, phase 2, phase 3A, phase 3B.
Right.
I don't know. You try to explain the whole damn thing to us, Robert.
So, hey, before we get there, we've got some people chatting, and Michael Thomas is saying the worst thing that they left out on the 3 was the NEMA adapter. I didn't know that stopped. You don't have a NEMA adapter now?
Is that true?
That is
yes.
That's upsetting.
That is like my favorite. That's like the only Tesla accessory I actually use, because that's how I had a NEMA put in at my work, so I could charge basically like 30 miles an hour with the straight cable. So that's not cool. They charge $35, I think, each for those bad boys.
Yeah. Well, that's cheaper than they used to charge, like 65, 70 a piece or 90 a piece. I remember I had to replace my J1772 adapter. So yeah.
Yeah, but now they have a bunch more because they're not putting them in the cars.
Yeah, Michael says they're going to give you the 110 now, which is
which is piss.
Because on the website, one of mine broke that adapter and the cable and stuff, and it was $550. It was very upsetting.
For the cable.
Wow.
For the cable, the little box, and the plug at the end. $550 to replace that.
Yeah, it's $520 on the website right now, and that's with the NEMA. So if you buy it on the website, you get the NEMA. That's a lot of money for that thing. That's more than they charge. I think that's about what they're charging for the wall charger.
Yeah, it's a bit upsetting.
The wall charger is actually $500. You can buy a silver wall charger for $475.
I have one. I'll sell it for $400 if you pay the shipping or pick it up.
You have what that you're trying to sell?
I have a wall charger.
Oh,
I had bought it earlier, and then I moved, and then I didn't need it, and now it's just been sitting there.
Yeah, and for the record, all the Gen 2 NEMA adapters are $35 each on the Tesla website. But still,
that's better.
And you can buy them all in a bundle for $220 if it wasn't sold out. So there you have it. The thing that makes me, the thing that I don't like is that they charge $450 for that Chatamo adapter, which I don't know. I mean, Chatamo is basically the dodo of electronic charging things as we move forward with CCS, I believe. But
unless you have a Leaf.
They're around right now. If you have a Leaf and you paid the additional charging, and you can find a station that charges Chatamo. Any other questions on the old chat there, Melvis?
No, that's enough for now. Let's talk about phase 2A of China.
Yeah, so the Shanghai Gigafactory, I've been curious what's happening in the field behind the Gigafactory. And lo and behold, there's on this Tasmanian blog, a video that was put together by, I don't know if I put it here or not, but
guy with the drone.
The guy with the drone in China, thankfully, you see, it's like I should know his name. Thankfully, he's out there all the time taking videos. He must buy people beer or something to get the access that he has. But he went in there and he took videos of the field that lies behind the Gigafactory. Remember now in China, in Shanghai, they have this ginormous Gigafactory where you see like the semi trucks parked like diagonally, like, I don't know, 40 of them. And then to the side of it is this square building, really big, multi-layer, multi-story, and that is producing batteries, motors, and drive units. And now they're building a third building that's bigger than the original Gigafactory. And that is supposed to be for producing Model Y. And they're expecting to produce 50% more Model Ys in China than the Model 3. And so this, which one person
at full capacity of Model 3 or at the current capacity of 3,000 a week, which is doing.
Full bore. You know, they're expecting to put out, was it 5,000 a week? Or was it 10,000? I don't recall right now. For the phase 1 Shanghai Gigafactory, putting out 5,000 to 10,000 threes a week. This Model Y building, the third building, which some people are calling phase 2, or they're calling it phase 3B. It's kind of confusing.
Well, because phase 2 looks like it's back behind in this one of these photos, right? There's a big white foundation that's already done. And that is what they're calling phase 2. And this front part with all the dirt and just the pylon sticking out of the ground, that's what they're calling phase 3. And the concrete, looks like the concrete floor hasn't been poured yet, but all the other supports are around. So, and it's huge. Like you said, it's twice as big as, it looks like twice as big as both the other buildings combined at the moment. Now, one question is, are they eventually gearing up from a size standpoint to maybe push out some Tesla semis in China as well? Because Tesla uses trucks, right?
Yeah, and there's lots of trucks being used in China, and certainly they have an emissions problem that would promote the use of semis that are renewable. So no doubt about that. I don't know how many roadsters they're going to sell in China, or if it would be worthwhile to create a roadster corner.
But he's already said he's building all of those in Fremont, right? The S, the X are all, and the Roadster are all going to like stay in Fremont as like sort of bespoke. I mean, my guess is the amount of Roadsters they're going to build, they could probably build them in Hawthorne one at a time with Franz, right? Put them together. Just like working on them.
I want to make a prediction. You've heard it here first. That the China factory will be pumping out more cars than the American factory by the end of the year. How's that for prediction?
By the end of this year?
Yep.
Is that assuming Fremont's open, or are you talking about at full Fremont production?
I'm saying that the Chinese factory is getting built so quickly. They're going to be pumping out tons of Model Ys. We're going to be spluttering through this coronavirus thing. Tesla's not going to be up to speed yet. China's going to surpass them. There it is. You heard it here first. It's not right, but you heard it here first.
So they're right now making about 3,000 Model 3s. Robert, you said twice as many. So theoretically, they could make 6,000 a week in Ys at the current whatever pace of 3. But what is their? I can't remember. It's been a while since we talked about the Shanghai. But what was their hopes for full-on Model 3? 5,000 a week in China, something like that.
That's what I recalled.
they talked about eventually China getting to 10,000 a week, 10,000 vehicles a week. That was 3NY. I don't know
3NY. Okay.
percent.
So if that's the case, then it would be like 6,000Y, 6,500Y, 3,500, something in that ballpark. So it's a 10. But if it's more than that, like if the full blown like 3 production can go to 5 and they're doing twice as many Y, they could be making 15,000 a week, that's astronomical.
Or if their total, it could be as high as 30,000 a week, which would also be quite stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it'll come down to, at that point, it'll come down to batteries, right? It'll come down to how many batteries can they make in that building? Like, is that one battery drivetrain building enough to keep up with that level of capacity in the rest of the factory? Or is another one of these, is 2B, like supposed to be an additional battery factory? That seems to be everything you hear when they talk about batteries, when you hear things about Tesla, like that's always going to be the marbles in their funnel is going to be making cells.
Right. And they've talked about at the earnings call, which we haven't got to yet, a terafactory. We're talking about batteries, a terafactory. And so they're just sort of, threw that out there, that the next thing coming at Battery Day is they're going to be talking about the new chemistry, and they're going to be talking about a factory that's going to pump out this new chemistry, a terafactory, not a giga, a tera. What's after that? Penta?
I don't know. But after that, Elon will be on Mars, so he won't care what you call it.
Yeah, or he'll be in an institution the way he's going.
I thought when they were talking about the next factory on the earnings call, I don't know if we're going to get to it, but since we're here now, it's going to be announced next month. Now, I'm being a little bit forward and optimistic, but it sounds like they're talking about announcing next month at the Battery Investor Day that there's going to be a new Gigafactory, and it's probably going to be in Texas. That's what I read out of it.
Well, they didn't say Texas. They said the States. They've also said they were going to drive, autonomously across the country for years now. So, I mean, let's pump the brakes a tiny bit. But it is amazing, right? If you think about the Gigafactory that is in Shanghai, nothing was there 2 years ago. And now Mel has predicted they're going to be making more cars by the end of this year, so 6 months from now, than a very well-established factory in Fremont, which is, it's pretty amazing. That's name another company that could put that kind of capacity in play in 2 years.
Crickets. But I do have a point of contention with you, Tom. What do the squashes feel? You just completely negated them. That was a field full of squashes.
Right, but there are farmers here right now
there
throwing their squashes away anyway. So clearly we didn't need the squashes. Like, we don't have a way to deliver those squashes to market. Nobody's in quarantine being like, oh, time for some more squashes, honey. No, people want pizza and ice cream and grilled cheese. They want some comfort food, man. Like they want some banana bread. Banana bread is like the #1 thing people are making in coronavirus. And every chef on the planet is doing free streams all over the place on Instagram, teaching us how to cook stuff. So they call it the quarantine 10. I think I'm going to be on a quarantine 40.
Yeah, I just heard someone say she finally has worked out why all those Renaissance pictures post-plague were just of fat people lying on the couch. Now she understands.
It's so true. So true. So do you guys want to get into this?
You know how long here's a trivia point. You know how many years the plague persisted in Europe?
8.
300 years or something?
200 years.
800 is what I meant. I didn't finish talking. I think I was going to say 800.
I mean,
really, 200 years?
200 years of sickness, of wave after wave after wave. But the economic effect and the effect on education and technology advancements, that lasted like 800 years.
Spanish flu was 2.5 years. Some people say longer.
And you know what came after that?
A war. No,
the
finished
Roaring '20s. The Roaring '20s.
And then the rise of Nazism and a depression, and then a war, and then I just read this thing, and it's like, you think you've got it bad, Imagine if you were born in 1900. When you're 14, the First World War starts. When you're 18, the war hasn't finished and the pandemic begins. And then you go through a depression. Then there's the rise of Nazism. And then you have to go to war again because you're still young enough. So you have to go to the Second World War. And then after that, there's a Korean War. And then after that, there's a Vietnam War.
Cold War.
It's like, and there's a couple of other pandemics in. It's like, damn, glad I wasn't born in 1900.
And I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day. Our generation basically started in like the late 60s or whatever. So we've seen in our lifetimes men walk on the moon, space shuttle program, the creation of the personal computer and the internet, which is making this conversation possible.
And the Hot Pocket.
And the Hot Pocket. It was weird. And we ranked them all, and Hot Pocket was by far number one. And if it wasn't for the internet, we would still be very successful because we've had the Hot Pocket.
I
can't say I've had a Hot Pocket.
Delicious.
That's because your body is a temple, Robert.
So let's go through some of the other stuff at the earnings call.
Oh, right.
So they made some money. They made some money because they were pumping out a lot of stuff and then they had to close down, but it was towards the end of the quarter. So that didn't hurt them that much. They made some money. A little bit.
Tiny bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
And so all of that was very uninteresting, like I said. So they made a little bit of money and next quarter could be terrible. But what's some of the interesting things that came out of there was full self-driving as a premium subscription. What does that mean?
Yeah, I've been throwing that around. I know, Tom, you have that on your notes as well.
Yeah, well, let's kind of just start from the beginning a little bit. We'll get to that part of it. That's part of in the Q&A or whatever. But so this was the first time they achieved positive GAAP net income in a weak first quarter. Even with all those challenges, they had 20% gross margins. So they're making 20% margin on every vehicle that they sell. That's a lot of money. And I did a little bit of math later on in terms of a question that was asked later. So we'll really get into that a little bit more. And then in Q1, they produced more Model Ys than Model 3s in Fremont. So in the first quarter of production of the Model Y, they produced more of those than they did in the first 2 quarters of Model 3 production. So they learned a lot when they ramped up Model 3 production, and they put it into play, and they were able to make that many more cars in a shorter amount of time. So that's very, very impressive. It was also profitable in the first quarter, which none of their products has ever been. Again, that's a huge deal. They talked about autopilot. They're collecting data from 1 million intersections every single month. Right? It seems like that's a lot of intersections based on how many people don't have full self-driving. Imagine if everybody had full self-driving. I'm curious what kind of data they're getting from the cars that don't have the full self-driving, Robert.
Yeah, but I was going to say, just remember that even if you haven't paid for full self-driving, you've still got all those cameras around your car, and they've got a computer in that car that can record all that, and they can, in the background, stealthily send all that information to the mothership. So they're still collecting all of this information.
But are they getting that same date, the same level of data that they're getting, like when Mel's being annoyed shitless to like continue to press that button? Should I go? Should I go? Should I go? Should I go? Are they getting that?
They're not getting that training data from Mel. I mean, I would think Mel, being an educator and a trainer in the first place, he wouldn't scoff at being an educator and trainer for Tesla. But
but the Tesla right now is like that student that you just can't stand. It's like, okay, enough. You're unteachable.
That's super funny. And then that's an advantage. Elon mentioned that's an advantage that no one else has, and he's right. Who else is doing anywhere near close to that real world? Maybe Google in like Phoenix, maybe, but nowhere near 1 million, right? And
there was a leak. I was going to say there was a leaked memo from Audi, was it? Mm-hmm. Internal memo that said Tesla is so far ahead of us in terms of autonomy because they have so many miles, because it's in every car, and it's going to take us forever to catch up. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's funny.
Go ahead.
Funny that you mentioned that, Mel, because there are times when Elon says things and then the people who respond, the newscasters and the article writers that are all doubters, that these people say they're doubters, they'll respond with these like, no way, no way, no way. Then like 6 months, 9 months, 18 months later, someone from like Mercedes and Audi comes out and says, oh my God, guess what? And they don't connect the two. What Elon said a year ago is actually the truth. So it's nice to hear that because Elon's been saying that for a long time. They're not basing all of this driver technology on simulation. They're doing a lot of simulation, but they're using real world rubber meets the road analysis of what we're seeing as drivers.
And they said the last autopilot thing, sorry to cut you off because to finish
That's
this
okay.
point, that autopilot safety is now twice as good as it was in the same period last year or 6 months ago. Now, I don't like to compare that safety against humans, which Elon sometimes does. I don't think that's fair. It's not randomized. When you've got autopilot on, you're on the freeway and it's, you know, much less difficult driving. But autopilot compared to autopilot looks like it's about twice as good as it was, whatever that time frame, 6 months or a year ago. That is impressive. Continue on, Tom.
And the standard, well, hold on before you leave though, but the standard question that I have for you is the new version of autopilot that you have, is the regular part of it still working fine and normal, even though like you're having issues with the lights and the stop signs and stuff like that? And sometimes when they do those updates, it's like a teenager again. Is that the case for yours or not?
It's pretty smooth, but the one thing that it doesn't do that I really miss was the move away from the trucks over in the lane. It's still,
really?
It's gone back to going straight through the lane, whereas it used to move away from the big truck. And I really think that's a downgrade, and I don't know why they did that.
Yeah, hopefully that will be back because that is a great feature. And then the last thing before we get to the questions, and Robert, I'm sure you'll be able to have some sort of comment about this.
I was just going to make a comment on what Mel said.
Go ahead.
That I was noticing that, and I liked the car moving away from the truck when you get up next to it. But I was in a couple of situations where there were two trucks. They were on the lanes on either side of me. One was a little further behind the other. And so I come up, the car starts scooting away from the first truck. Before I get away from that first truck, it encounters the second truck. Now I'm really close to the first truck, to the second truck. And now I'm between these two trucks and the car is having a hard time centering me to get me away from the second truck, right? So first truck on my right, come up, car moves to the left. Now there's a truck on the left, or there's a driver on the left who's not paying attention and texting, and they're driving really close to my lane. The car didn't seem, at least to my level of safety, didn't center or maneuver safely. I don't know if you ever had that experience.
Your level of comfort in that case, right? Your level,
so what happens there is if you take over and then you accelerate and move around and things, what Tesla's supposed to do is learn from that. Oh, Robert took over. Why did the bag of meat take over? And is it like, oh, this is the situation and maybe we can fix that in a coming version. So that's good that you almost died. You're helping Tesla get smart. Thank you.
Yeah, I think like when those environments come up where you are in between two big trucks or in between a truck and another car, it should just default back to the center line. But that, my guess is, it takes a fair amount of learning, but hopefully it'll get there. And then the last thing before we get to the questions is, they said they're confident that it will be possible to do a drive from your home to your office most of the time with no interventions by the end of the year. How many times? This is Elon's like 2020. This is Elon's every other car company's 2020. We're going to have an awesome car out, right?
That's right. And at least they didn't play the Rolling Stones in the background.
So anybody, are you confident by the end of this year that you're going to be able to, well, your home is your office. So maybe like you're going to be driving from your home to anywhere else?
I think that they'll get there, actually. I don't know if it'll be particularly safe. I think it might be like a drunken 15-year-old, but you can see the stuff in place. You can see the visualizations that they potentially could get there, but it's the level of safety. I mean, a 13-year-old can drive from my house to the studio a couple of miles away. but it's going to crash a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't know. It is definitely one of the punctuality problems of Tesla and Elon. But
Yeah.
again, he reiterated that full self-driving by the end of the year. And, I don't know what the regulators are thinking about that, where they feel like they stand in being prepared to let that.
I don't believe the regulators are at work anymore. I'll be honest with you. It feels like they're probably at home. All right, so let's get to some of the first questions. The first question is that I have, or that was asked, was could you consider offering full self-driving as a premium subscription? You touched on this a little bit. Will probably be towards the end of the answer was, I think it will probably offer full self-driving by the end of the year, which is everything happens by the end of every year, basically in this business. In our view, buying full self-driving is an investment in the future. So Mel, how do you feel like your full self-driving investment has paid off for you so far?
Well, I've paid for it a number of times, and they've given me nothing. So that is a really good business model that they've got there. Give me money for something that I don't give.
Yeah. They should probably not refer to full self-driving as an investment when they're talking about it in an earnings call. That seems misdirected in some ways.
Yeah, it seems like the finance specialist was out of the room on that one.
But what do you guys think about the subscription thing?
So I'm trying to work out the use case for that. They said it's going to be really expensive. It'll be cheaper to just buy it up front, but maybe you break both your arms and legs and you're like, well, this month while I'm healing, I need the car to drive me around. But when I'm healed, I'll do the driving. Or maybe there'll be times when you're like, this month I'm not going to be driving much. I'm going to put the car onto the robo network and I'll buy full self-driving so I can do that for the month, and it'll more than pay for itself.
But for those people who don't have, so this is interesting, like potential use case problem with that is if they don't say, like, once you subscribe, you have to subscribe for a year or 2 years, and you decide, so I personally decide I want to go for a subscription. Let's say it's $80 a month. I need the new hardware. They have to install a new computer in my car. Then I can just turn it off in a month. So they're out a bunch of money. Like, how would that aspect of it work in that subscription service, or would they not bother to upgrade?
Well, going forward, they're all going to, they have hardware 3, so I don't think they'll be doing much retrofitting going forward. Maybe they will when hardware 4 comes out. But I know they've made it very clear that it's going to be expensive. But again, if you're the kind of person who's just stretching to get your Model 3 and a $7,000 add-on is way too much, but a $50 or $100 a month you could do, then maybe there are some people that are going to opt for that.
Yeah,
I wonder what the cost of $7,000 over like a 6-year loan is versus the subscription service. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, that's what I put in here because Fred from Electric already started pontificating on this. And so, right now it's 7,000 to have full self-driving, and they were talking about increasing that to 8. I wondered how you, Tom, are going to react to that, but we'll talk about that
negatively,
in a second.
very negatively.
And so, like, how would they calculate this? And so typically people own cars like 79 months. That's the average on the IHS website, the insurance website. But they're talking about like a 72-month loan, which is pretty long loan on a car, that the $7,000 gets down to about $97 a month, that it would increase your loan. And that's quite a lot of money. So they're speculating that this is not going to be less than $100 a month to have full self-driving. And that's, when you look at it like that, is it really worth like over $3 a day for what we currently have in full self-driving? I might think so, because I'm driving, 50 miles one way to work. And there's a fair amount of people who own Teslas who are driving that kind of distance for work, but the vast majority of people are not.
And the first day that Mel gets full self-driving, it will be a $15,000 day.
But it'll be a good day, Tom.
It will be. That's true.
Yeah, the full self-driving thing has been a waste of time. I have done it because I'm a fanboy and I wanted to be part of this thing. But people ask me when they're buying it, should I get it? I'm like, no, you shouldn't
Yeah.
get it yet. Wait for
Yeah.
that thing, unless you're a geek and this is like something that you're going to play with and it's like your life. But otherwise, it hasn't been worth it up to now, and it's still not worth it right now.
Same reason here. The reason that I get it is so that I can talk about it here and be sort of in the times with everybody, but not such a great idea. So Tom, are you still waiting to get yours for, was it 3,000 or 2,000?
I believe it's 4,000 now if I purchase it through the app, which is the only way to purchase it, which means, likely it just won't happen. Again, I have most of the features that I need. I don't know that I mean, sure, would I like to use it on the streets at some point? Maybe positively, maybe once the car is paid off, I'll feel differently about it and then it won't be quite as burdened. That's not for quite a while. But as of right now, I'm not upset by the fact that I don't have it. Yes, Robert.
We have a comment on the YouTube live chat from, again, Michael, sorry. And he said that he thinks there would have to be at least a 6 or a 12-month minimum subscription. And that makes sense too, because Tesla doesn't want to be in the business of managing, like a cable company, your monthly bills. The amount of headache and staff that you need for something like that would be just too much.
All right, full self-driving. Okay, right here then. What else?
So China changed its subsidy for electric vehicles such that Teslas were too expensive and they didn't qualify, which is a big problem for Tesla, since that's one of the things that keeps this very expensive car affordable in a country like China, where people don't have as much disposable income. So what did Elon and Tesla do in response? On the earnings call, they announced that they're going to drop the price or the cost of the Model 3 so that it could qualify for the government subsidy. And so I went on, and that was supposed to happen the day after the call, which was 2 days ago. And so I went on the website and I looked, and in China now, the car costs the equivalent of about $38,500, including the subsidy. So that's your end price for the base Model 3, which is pretty low compared to the United States, which is more. And so, I think that's pretty impressive how quickly Tesla can pivot on something like that.
I wonder how many knobbly bits the Chinese are not going to get. They're going to like, no carpets anywhere in the car. Actually, you don't need a driver's seat. That's ridiculous. Just sit on the floor.
No, you don't need a passenger seat. All you need is a driver's seat, no back seat. Yeah, we're wondering if you even need the windows, quite honestly.
The windows,
I mean, really, it's the battery pack that's the money. So look, here's your car. Boom, battery pack.
Or it's like Lego set. You put it together yourself.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that. But it's interesting, they never did that here. There wasn't a thing about price or whatever, but they didn't, that could have been an interesting way for our government to like change or keep the subsidy, alive, is maybe make it for cars that were under a certain amount of money. And I wonder if Tesla would have made that same thing. And I also do wonder if it would, did they say initially they didn't think it was going to be, they're still going to hit those 20% margins on it? They didn't say, they said, we will still be a vehicle that delivers a good gross margin at those. Right. And I also wonder, like, moving forward, how many of those, what percentage of the vehicles at that price range they're going to sell versus the luxury versions, right? Is there going to be a status issue or something like that as it pertains?
I think in China, they're selling a lot more of the bare bones model Teslas. And looking at a US website, the purchase price is $39,990, so essentially $40,000. And here we have a much more restricted rebate or incentive program, right? Tesla no longer qualifies for the federal, and to qualify for the state rebates, you have to earn less than, I think it's $150,000, and then you only get half of the rebate. So, rebates here in California, or incentives, are much more curtailed compared to in China. And as well in China, you can't even register a new car that you've just bought. You can't just go out and say, oh, today I want to buy whatever, a Chinese car, a Jaguar, whatever, and just buy it and get it registered. No, those are very, very tightly restricted. But electric cars like Tesla, yes, you can just go and get them registered on the spot. And in fact, somebody showed a photograph of what looked like a Costco gas station. I don't know if you've never been to Costco, my apologies, but it's a big gas station with maybe 4, 5, or 6 lanes of cars all waiting to get up to the gas pump. And that's what the lines getting into this like DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, look like in China. And on the left half, 2 or 3 of the lanes were all Teslas. So it looked like there were very few other cars getting registered in this Chinese DMV except for Teslas. And it was pretty impressive.
That's cool. Very cool. The next question was basically, again, about full self-driving, but more how it pertained to the money and the revenue that they recognized it. So the answer was, please update on the progress toward development and commercialization of full self-driving and how much revenue have you recognized it? They mentioned that they're selling it for $7,000, and they basically are taking half of that as instant revenue and the other half of it in deferred revenue. And they've been doing that for quite a while, kind of since the beginning. And they take a little bit every time they release a new feature, like your new feature of the street lights or whatever, Mel. They probably took a couple $100 or something out of the kitty for that. And whatever your update will have, Robert. But the deferred revenue balance is $600 million right now. So that's a lot of money just sitting in the bank. And that is only people who have purchased it, which from everything that they talk about or that you hear about is less people than purchase it. So then there's all this sort of locked up revenue they talked about a little bit at one point, where people like me who haven't put any money down on it, are there 500,000 cars out there, 600,000 cars out there that they could get $7,000 each from at some point if full self-driving comes online and is amazing. That is a potential windfall of billions of dollars for them, just kind of hanging in the balance.
It wasn't in what they said, but actually in the written earnings call piece, they said that 500 of that 600 million was from me.
That seems about accurate, really. It does seem about accurate. You should and a lot of that money is no longer deferred because you've returned several of those cars at this point, right? So
they've got all of them.
Yeah, they got all that revenue. So that's pretty awesome.
I'd love to have a coffee with the person who's in charge of deciding, oh yes, now the car will, it will detect cones. Oh, that's worth $75 million. Yay! Who decides that?
That's probably pretty fun, actually. That's probably a pretty good gig.
Yeah, I would love that job.
Yeah. We added bunnies. Oh, that's only $2 million. Sorry, you only get $2 million for recognizing bunnies. We apologize.
But you know where the tension in Tesla is between the person who books the $50 million for cones versus the guy who developed the fart. And so the dude who developed the fart, or maybe it was a girl, was like, hey man, my fart's getting so much more airtime than your cones.
Well, right. Elon's giving bigger bonuses for the fart than he is for the cones. That's for damn sure. Elon loves that fart.
I wonder why they don't come up with some sort of a incentive program. We'll put you in the drawing for the Roadster if you come up with the next good fart program.
Yeah, the next big Easter egg kind of deal.
Right.
Let's move on. So the next question, Elon has mentioned a 50% compound annual growth target for Tesla in the past. Is this still in line with Tesla's ambition for the next 5 to 10 years? This would be 4 million vehicles in 2025 and 20 million vehicles in 2030. Is 40% or more a realistic target? And Elon said, I think 40% is the likely number. It's possible that it's 40%. I would be very shocked if it's less than 40%, even with force majeure short of World War III. These are huge numbers.
Huge.
What is force majeure? We need to stop right there. What is that word?
That's like a virus is what a force majeure is. Like that's a thing they put in contracts. That's like if you want to get out of your deal, like something very terrible has to happen, a force majeure.
Right.
A major force keeps you from getting to your goal.
A major force.
A major force, right? Exactly.
Major force. Okay.
And so if these numbers are accurate, we are looking at a huge company. I mean, they're selling like I said, 1 million cars now, making 20% gross margins on those cars. So they're making what, $10,000 on 1 million cars, $10,000 each on 20 million cars. We're talking like a $500 billion in revenue a year, potentially.
And this isn't even considering Tesla's goal of replacing all vehicles with electric vehicles, because who else is stepping up to the plate right now?
$500 billion in sales, something, I think it was 500 or $53 billion. Just in 5 years, in 10 years, we're talking like, it means Tesla. And then Elon tweets that the Tesla stock price is way overvalued. Like which is it, bro? Like, where are we going with this thing? It's crazy that the amount of revenue at 20% margins on that kind of income is just staggering.
Yeah.
That's why the stock price is so high, but is pretty volatile, because a lot of things have to occur for them to make it. But if they can hit some of these targets, that's why some of the investors are saying, yeah, this is a multi-trillion-dollar company and should be valued at that, or at least partially valued at that now. You know that Tesla is now worth the stock price 4 times that of GM. Seems a little bit overheated still. And it's good because Elon brought it down a bit yesterday by tweeting he thinks it's the stock price is too high. I'm sure the other executives are very happy about that as he crashed the stock price.
Yeah, but like $50,000 in average sale price at 20 million vehicles, like $1 trillion a year in sales or something ridiculous like that. I mean, it's a huge number.
It's all of the numbers, Tom.
It's all of the numbers. And the next question was, when will you announce the next giga? How many gigas do you have planned for the next 5 years? And he said, as you said earlier, Mel, they're going to announce the next giga possibly as soon as a month. We may not as soon as next month. This is not a prediction, just saying that could happen. This is Elon speaking, by the way. So It doesn't make any goddamn sense. It will certainly be within 3 months and possibly 1 month. I think he may actually watch Trump's press conferences, possibly. And so this Gigafactory will be in the US. Didn't say Texas, but that's everybody's best guess that it would be in Texas. Anyway, so, and then they said, I don't know how many total, but there will be several more than there are today in the next 5 years. So again, like falling in line with being able to make 20 million cars, how many factories do they need to do that? Do they need 5 all around the world? And then he said, they're big, the factories are getting bigger, and we're going to probably start calling them terafactories at some point.
Right, because they're going to produce all of the Tesla products, like number of the different cars, depending on the region. So Texas is, I think one of the reasons that they're tagging Texas is for the Cybertruck, because they think that trucks likely are going to sell better in the middle of the country than they're going to sell on the West Coast. So they'll have further, less of a distance that they'll have to transport them. But at the same time, the battery products, maybe the HVAC system, I expect that the Terra means that they're going to broaden out the diversity and the product lines that can be produced at the factories.
Yeah. In the past, Elon said back of the napkin sort of thing, you would need 100 gigafactory size factories to basically transition the planet to completely renewables. He didn't make it sound like this was a few years ago that they were planning on 100 of the factories. But I'm going to go back to the original gigafactory that's still at 30% size. When are they going to finish that gigafactory? They're talking about terafactories. You haven't even finished the first one.
Right, but I think but my guess is that the Shanghai Gigafactory will be finished before the Nevada Gigafactory, and the Nevada Gigafactory is not a car production line really at the moment. It's like the biggest problem that they've had is making freaking batteries and making quality batteries and not throwing 500,000 batteries away every day or whatever it is, and so they really need to focus on what they're making inside that gigafactory, I believe, before they can feel comfortable finishing it for whatever reason. They may have also decided it's not in the best possible place for it. Like it may have just not been a smart location in terms of his availability to ports or its availability to rail spurs or whatever it is. And they don't, they're never going to tell us that, right?
Yeah, but they were supposed to produce these things with a robotic factory, right? That when they first announced the Gigafactory in Nevada, it was going to be this cybernetic, so packed with equipment that people could barely walk through and around the factory. And I remember seeing their mock-up of it. And of course, we've gone a different direction. In fact, we've changed course 4, 5, or maybe even 6 times since that announcement. So what the factory might look like as a build out factory now compared to like 4 years ago is a good question. I really would love to hear sort of an update on that. Maybe Battery Investor Day, but I'm not on my breath.
Yeah, we're going to hear a lot of Battery Investor Day. He used to talk about you'd need a strobe light to be able to see the batteries as they're coming off the line. They were whipping out so fast. They're not whipping them out at strobe light speed right now.
You just need like a Bic lighter now, like a 70s rock concert. You can just turn your lighter on.
There's another one.
Well, you do need a strobe light to see the ones that are going into the trash can, but I mean that's totally different situation. That's not really what he was what he's hoping for. So the next question is: give us an update on the solar roof ramp. How many are you currently able to install per week? What is your installations per week target for the end of 2021? Melvis, what is your status on Stoller Roof? Are you still in line? Are you still waiting? Are you out of the solar roof business?
I'm out. So the place that I was going to put a solar roof on, we just slapped up traditional solar, and it's very expensive, and they keep making it better and better all the time. So this is one of those ones where I've been happy to sit out. We do actually have a house, Grandpa's house, roof leaks like a sieve. We potentially could put something on there, but it's probably still going to be way cheaper just to re-roof it and he's got panels that are only 5 years old, and just put them back on.
So by the end of the year, though, because that's when all the good stuff happens, they're going to be installing 1,000 a week, basically internally with the Tesla team of installers. But then he said, well, that's not in the middle of winter or something, but that's sort of what happens at the end of the year. Just for the record, is the middle of winter kind of happens at the end of the year in most places. So he said, talking seasonality, allowing for seasonality, it's hard to install on roofs that are covered in snow and ice. That makes sense. But like spring, so spring is the middle of next year, basically, is kind of what he's getting at.
This is another one of those bit of over promising, because he's been saying we're going to ramp very soon to 1,000 a week, and then the next quarter, very soon 1,000 a week, very soon 1,000 a week. Like by the end of the year, 1,000 a week. It's another one of these.
An Elonism.
Elonism, yes. We'll see.
Right.
I mean, they said that they reached a peak of 1,000 installs a week at some point this year, or maybe, it had to have been this year, probably not too long ago. But then they're also using contractors who are roofing contractors, teaching them how to produce or how to install the solar roofs. And that's a process that's ongoing. So, there's a lot of different elements to how to get this thing going. And I say take it with a grain of salt, but I'm glad it's moving forward, and it seems like it's a good product. And I haven't heard any like recent complaints about it. So I'm positive on it.
So, I mean, it's still a single design at this point. They haven't gotten any of the other designs going. And so that's, another one of those overpromise, underdeliver kind of situations for Tesla Solar Roof. Again, I guess at some point you have to look at the solar roof thing specifically and say, is this core business? Are you going to ever get to the point where like you're going to be able to do this at the level and pace that makes sense to distract any part of your business from doing the core stuff, which is, transportation? I don't know. I don't think we're there yet. It's still a potential amazing product, but time will tell. They have to make it work before they can make enough of them to find out whether it's actually financially viable to make them cheaper, right? So there's a whole lot of ifs and whats and it happening as it pertains to that as a standalone business. In my opinion,
it's a potentially like $1 billion a year business. If they're doing 1,000
of them, and it's about $50,000 each, and you get up to close to the $1 billion mark. Is that worth it to them? I don't know. I'd take a $1 billion business.
Yeah,
with a good,
I mean,
20% margin. I'd take that.
You could buy some more full self-driving cars. That'd be great. The next question, apparently Elon's been tweeting about HVAC stuff, and I haven't seen much of this lately. I don't know, I haven't really been paying that much attention, but can you elaborate on Tesla's plan to enter the residential or commercial HVAC market? And can you provide some basics on how your system will work? So like Tesla's going to make air conditioning units for people's houses? I don't know. This seems not core, but then Elon said he's personally extremely excited to build a kick-ass HVAC system that has all sorts of hospital-grade particle filtration, basically that has filtration that filters out viruses and bacteria, even though he doesn't really believe that viruses and bacteria are that much of a problem at the moment. So it's weird. It's part of like the two sides of Elon that we deal with on some levels. So I don't know. To me, they shouldn't be doing this, but I don't know what you guys think.
So this comes from the Y. They built this really efficient system in the Y, and Munro, who's the guy that takes the Teslas and tears them down, has been really impressed with the Model Y. One of the things that he was very impressed with was how good this thing is. And you said it at the beginning, I think, Robert, that this could result in a 10% improvement in mileage just because of the heating and air. And so I think Elon got excited about it. It's like, well, we're so good at this now. Why don't we do it in people's homes?
Was it 10% because of heating or air, or was that the cooling of the battery? Or are they related? Did I miss something about that?
The whole thing is combined. So there's one system in the Model Y that heats and cools the cabin, heats and cools the battery, heats and cools the electronics, mostly cools, and it's all integrated into one unit, which number one, reduces the amount of weight, number two, makes it more responsive, and number three, makes it more energy efficient. And that's this Octa bottle system that Sandy Munro has still not reported on. He sort of talked about how it looked really great, but I think that they're still in the process of tearing it down or producing a report on it. And this came after some of his criticisms for the Model 3. And I don't know how much of tat for tat or whatever that's called, back and forth he's had with Elon in the back room as to how to make things better or how to improve things. But there's like this insignia on this device in the car that looks like an octopus with a snowflake on its head. And that's why everybody's calling it a Octa bottle or Octa valve, Octa valve.
Yeah, Sandy Munro is a pretty famous guy who does car tear downs and is an independent voice. And he was very critical of the 3, and he really feels like Tesla listened. And a lot of people have said, why don't they hire this guy? He's clearly a bit of a genius and would be great, but it would be a loss to us because I like this guy as independent. You tear it down. You tell us, independent of Tesla, what's good and what's bad. But he's been so far very impressed with the Model Y. Like some of the wiring and stuff, he's like, nobody does it this well. And the casting where it's basically 2 pieces instead of 70 pieces, like they're really killing it.
Yeah, in fact, they just put out a tweet where they showed the rear section of the undercarriage of the Model Y, and they had reduced it from in the 370 pieces in the Y down to 2 or 3, and now they're going to replace that casting with a single piece. So I don't know if you'll be getting that one or not, Mel, but that's going to also lower the weight of the car and increase its efficiency. And these are all ways to, get back that 2% that the EPA pulled away by leaving the door open.
Just shut the door; it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it was about here where he started to lose it, or he lost it soon. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we're getting there. So Kurt Ringenberg on the chat on YouTube asked the question about why Tesla doesn't hire Sandy Munro. So you answered that question, Mel. Another gentleman turning short final said he was interested in the solar roof for a new house he was building, but he wrote, there will get around to it at some point. Didn't jive with construction, I guess, construction schedules. And he said Tesla's actions were a joke when I was trying to do it. So again, you ran into that early on as well with the solar roof, and you moved on from that. So again, there are issues. So again, thanks for the good chat and questions. Joe
Yeah,
Pereira.
That's the hard thing about being an early adopter in the Tesla verse, is that it comes with some pain.
And Joe Pereira says, hey guys, as an ex-Tesla employee, I still have connections. He's currently working on getting the full self-driving download and not the 4K the app is charging. I'll keep you posted. I don't know if I would be super comfortable putting like pirated full self-driving. But if you get it first and it's working pretty well, like reach out. Let me see what's going on.
Yeah, an N of 1 is comfortable for you, huh, Tom?
No, not really. I mean, but like, I don't know. I talk a big game, Robert. And then the next question was, when will Tesla start acquiring utilities like Hornsdale Power Reserve, and instead of them selling them battery storage? Does it make sense for Tesla to buy bigger power plants? And in typical Elon style, it was sort of like, oh, that's not something we think we've ever thought of, but that's not out of the question.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, well, how can it be both? Something you never thought of and instantaneously not out of the question. So the overreaching goal is to help accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. And the three elements are power generation, store the power, and stationary storage. And then you have to have electric transportation. So he said, if we don't have anything in mind, that it is possible that they could just buy their own utilities. I mean, I guess Tesla Energy could be somebody that sends me a monthly bill for clean power. I'd be all right with that. Bring it on. And then
they've got a lot to do. They don't need to be doing that. And then, yes, go do it. And
then Elon, for whatever reason, at some point started to talk about the pandemic and the coronavirus, and he made some comments. And he wrote, and I quote, if somebody wants to stay in their house, that's great. They should be allowed to stay in their house, and they should not be compelled to leave. But to say they cannot leave their house and they will be arrested if they do so, this is fascist.
Oh,
not democratic. This is not freedom. Give people back their goddamn freedom. Now, initially I was like, ooh, fascism, probably not the best way to sort of go through this. But apparently Elon looks in dictionaries, and there is some definitions that maybe potentially you could potentially say fit. It's a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for autocratic government, severe economic and social regimentation, and the forcible suppression of opposition. Now, I don't know, like, we're making people stay inside to save their lives. You start using fascism, it just diminishes the horrors that fascism has sort of played on this earth. And the nations of the world are doing what they can to try to keep us all safe. And so people like Robert and Mel aren't in shifts having to make the life and death decisions because of equipment shortages that they don't want to make and that they will then have to live with. So I think it's the wrong way to start a conversation. And then I'm going to throw out this at the end of it. Let's not mention that you made a financial deal with an authoritarian regime in China in order to help your company grow and be viable. There are other non-authoritarian, non-communist countries in Asia that know how to build cars and treat people properly. So you could have put your money where your mouth is. Just don't use fascism.
Yeah.
Preach, brother. Yeah, you sold your soul to China, which lots of companies do, and ultimately might end up being good for the company, good for the planet. But he is cycling right now. He is manic. We've seen this multiple times. Somebody take his Twitter away. They need to take some other guy's Twitter away. And he's just got this rolling consciousness. He's super manic, and he's getting really agitated because he can't go and build cars and do stuff. And he's like, what do you want, Elon? You just want us to go back and just let it blow up like New York in every city in the United States? You will have 2 million dead people. So the governments are making a very difficult choice here. And we could argue about the right thing. But if you follow the science, and you usually follow the science, letting people do whatever the hell they like is going to result in the complete collapse of the healthcare system in the entire United States. New York, every single city in the United States. You can't let everybody go and run around.
And how is he going to react? So he says that you can't force people to leave their houses and go back, right? What is he going to do? Let's say the government says you can go and open your factory in Fremont, but half of his employees don't want to go to work. Is he going to fire them, or is he going to like stay true to his word? Is he going to just find new people to take their jobs on a temporary basis, and then when those people decide they want their jobs back, they're going to be waiting for them? I doubt it, but I don't know. He didn't say anything about that. Again, I think he's well within his rights to say and talk and tell people that he's upset with the way that this thing is going, using fascism, a word that is responsible for the death of 10 million people, over.
It's a bad analogy.
It's just a bad analogy, and it's silly, and it doesn't help people want to have a conversation with you about it, right? He's smarter than that. He's better than that. If you want to talk to somebody about your opinions on the science behind letting people go back to work and leave their house, do that. Don't call us fascists because we're trying to keep people safe. It's just, it's not cool.
This is like calling somebody a pedo guy. This is like 420. This is somebody who cycles, who needs to, have a few drinks at night and start gibbering on, just like put it down. Now, the conspiracy theory here is that the stream went out when he was really ramping up. And I think one of the other executives in the room smashed the modem, pulled the plug, grabbed the Ethernet cable, like, let him think he told the world all of what else he wanted to say, and then they plugged it in again. Because he was really ramping up. That was the beginning of what was going to be a tremendously dangerous rant. In fact, some people have already said that he may already be in legal trouble for what he's been saying. I don't know why. I didn't see anything there, but
well, he did that tweet about the stock price, right? But the weird thing,
that's what it was. Yes.
Yeah. He did that tweet about saying that the stock was overpriced. However, like, they don't think he can actually get in trouble for that because he didn't say like it was underpriced or whatever, right? And this is the fourth time he's made that comment about the stock being overpriced in the history of the company. So, I mean, so what I would recommend to all of you investors out there, if you're into it, is the next time he does this, you should buy some Tesla the next day because it goes down.
So he was also, again, in what appears, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not his psychiatrist, in a manic-like mood, saying how he's going to sell all his houses, sell all his earthly possessions. He just bought 5 houses last year and like building a compound, and now he's going completely the other way. I'm getting rid of everything. I need to be nimble on this planet and on Mars. I'm like, dude, take some medicine and take a break.
I'll put down the Superman movies, Lex Luthor. Autonomous driving, Robert.
All right. I'm fucking around. I'm sorry. I'm messing around with my media picks.
Oh,
you want to just go to media picks, and
No. I think the RoboCab is keeping us on this exact same sort of ranting, tripping, what's coming in the future that may very well never come, or come far, far further in the future than what Elon is saying. But he's saying that, RoboCabs coming by the end of the year, although I can't imagine how that's
the end of the year? Huh. Again, yes. With the end of the year.
Yeah, end of the year. End of the year's, but except that it was raining or there was snow, but they said in select areas. So, this is what Cruise did in San Francisco. This is what Google did in Chandler, Arizona. They geofenced their ability to do essentially a robo-taxi, and they still had problems. Not to say that Tesla doesn't have advantages over them, like, I don't know how big a metric ton more data, or a gigaton more data and experience by their vehicles. But I mean, there is still, how many years and how millions of miles, billions of miles has Tesla mastered or semi-mastered the highway? I was driving like a week ago and there was some big piece of crap. I don't know what it was, because I looked up while I'm in autopilot. I had glanced down, I think, to look at the map or how many turns I had to go until my destination. And I looked up and there was this black thing in the road. it looked like probably some like combination plastic or cardboard undercarriage part to a car. And I swerved to get away from it. And luckily there was nobody next to me, but autopilot was like, no, didn't see anything. So there's still a long way to go. And to suggest that we've got robocabs around the corner, like coming next in the next 8 months, is pretty unbelievable. What do you think, Mel? You've got the newest, and you said you've been using it. I wanted to know something specific. Like, was it not stopping before the limit line? Did the newest version, so I can be a little more educated, did it not pay attention to some aspect of the road off the highway that made you feel uncomfortable, or was it just all of the stopping, waiting for confirmation?
It's jerky. It slows down, and then you say it's fine, and it starts to go again, and then it sort of hits the, I shouldn't say hit the brake, but it starts to brake pretty heavily, and I'm like, no, it's fine. And I hit it again, and then it does it a third time. It does it like at 600 feet, 400 feet, and 100 feet, and it keeps asking and slowing down, and it's beta software. It's like, oh, I see where you're going, and I see that you need the sack of meat to help you, but it's super annoying that the car is jerking back and forth, and I'm worried about the people behind me going to crash into me, and they're like, are you drunk? What the hell are you doing? So it feels very much like autopilot in the very early days. It's like the drunken 15-year-old.
And if the light is green and you don't react whatsoever, will it stop at that intersection?
If the light is green, it'll stop.
Okay. If you don't react.
If you don't react. If it's red, you obviously don't have to react. It'll just.
And you have to react 3 times, technically, from what you're telling me, for it to go through a green light.
Well, this is the confusing stuff. The heuristics here, I don't think have been worked out. You know, again, there's some YouTubers that'll look at this as well. So at 600 feet, it says, I'm going to stop in 600 feet. But I can tell it doesn't need to stop. So I say, don't worry about it. And you put your foot on the pedal or you flip the autopilot switch. But then it's like, it forgets that. I'm going to ask you again, 200 feet later, I'm going to stop. And it starts to slow down. So you have to disengage. And then at 100 feet, that is probably something that they can fix very quickly. But out of the gate, if you get this update, make sure that you are fully engaged and ready to take over, because it is a drunken teenager right now.
Yeah, so just got to be very careful with it. And I'm going to look forward to driving it around, especially nowadays. There's so little traffic. LA is so different than it used to be. I'm kind of delighted by it, but at the same time, it's a sad situation.
Your last question on this document, though, Robert, about the full self-driving or the robocabs, I really want you to ask, will you guys let your cars on the robotaxi network? Melvis?
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this before. If those things that Elon said is true, that my $50,000 car will actually earn me $300,000 over the life of that car, why wouldn't I? I should get all my friends and family and get all our coins together and buy as many of those as we can.
Yeah.
But I just think if that's true, they're not going to sell you those cars, because that's insanity.
But here's an interesting.
They're going to keep them for themselves.
But here's an interesting take. I agree with that last part of it, but here's an interesting take on it. I don't know what your guys' current thoughts are on, but I'm not getting in an Uber and a Lyft in a pandemic type of a situation. But does a robo taxi with nobody in it change that? Or is it the last person that got in it still the problem?
Well, we talked about it. This is where you have to put in that extra device that sprays the hydrogen peroxide, pulses the light between each thing.
Yeah.
But it's got to be less infectious than if there was somebody driving the car that was excreting the virus.
Yeah. In this case, I would put my 3 on the robotaxi network, and I would buy a Y with the profits.
Exactly.
And I would not put the Y on the robotaxi network.
I'm sure somebody's got a product that's going to enable people to, as you open the door, there's a wipe container right there that's ready to go. And you just, as you get in, you're wiping everything down, and it's the fomites that are left behind from the prior passengers that are the risk. But yeah.
I want that surgical UV light in the ceiling, man. Just
and that's another possibility. Somebody could put something like that in the car.
Blast the hell out of that thing.
It takes a while, because UV surgical It takes about 4 hours in an ICU. They pulse that thing, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not
I don't have 4 hours, so they gotta have to fix that. They gotta put more of them.
Yeah, you're only going to make
Yeah.
3,000 a year on your car if you have to wait 4 hours between.
Yeah. Supercharger update, Mr. Robert. What do you got
Yeah,
for
so
us?
we've got our last show was on the 18th of April, so about 2 weeks ago. And Supercharger activity has been kind of ho-hum.
Oh dear.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not
Stayed home.
it's not so unexpected since we've had a pandemic global and shutdown. So we have 4 new open superchargers, and they're pretty scattered. We have one in Florida, we have one in Poland, we have one in Norway, and we have one in Austria. So those were probably like on the verge of being completed. And then by the grace of whatever, Allah, they became completed in just the last 2 weeks and shut and turned on. Probably they were already done, and we were just waiting for the power company to flip the switch so they could go live. As far as construction goes, we only have 4 new superchargers that have gone into construction, and we have 7 new permitted superchargers. I know that the permitting has shut down. There's a guy, sort of one of the upper level guys in superchargers. I'm not going to say his name, but I got to meet him at a supercharger, and I got to see him on the Los Angeles Tesla Club gathering, which I talked about on our last show. It was great. It was our first virtual get together for the Los Angeles Tesla Club. And I know the Orange County Tesla Club had one as well, which makes it easier for you. You don't have to drive your Tesla to get there. You can just flip on your computer, but you got to make sure you have your Tesla gear on. Anyway, I was talking to him, and he said that right now, getting permits is just shut down. None of the building departments are actively working and allowing that to move forward. And I actually pressed him for details on the Santa Monica supercharger. If you recall, there is a Santa Monica urban supercharger with 10 stalls. That's at the mall. That's like almost at the Pacific Ocean in Santa Monica. It's a pretty upscale mall at the end of the 3rd Street Promenade. And that thing still runs quite full, even though we are in the middle of a pandemic. But there's supposed to be a giant, like 20 stall supercharger with a burger stand and servers on roller skates. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like 3 or 4
It's gonna be ready
years
by
ago.
the end of the. It's gonna be ready by the end of the year.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
the end of
fine.
the year 2016.
They're gonna get to it.
Yeah, it's still an open lot. Although I did see today when I drove by it, there was a big pile of cardboard I think somebody's living under, but it's nothing more than a former used car lot. And so I pushed them to ask them about that. And guess what I heard? I heard that a lot is going to happen on that site this year.
By the end of this year.
So we'll see. I mean, it'll be a great day. We'll have to have a talking Tesla hamburger celebration if that place actually gets built and is opened.
Nice.
When the world comes back.
All right, Melvis, media pick time.
Let me give you my media picks. TikTok. Okay, a friend of mine got me into TikTok. I've been hearing about TikTok. I'm like, okay, short form video. It's been done before. It's been done on Twitter. Whatever. It's not that interesting. TikTok is addictive. Do not download that app, or you will be like me in these pandemic times, finding yourself spending hours flipping from 1 minute video to 1 minute video. There are some of the most genius, creative people out there. There's also some idiots, but mostly I'm so impressed with it. Don't do it though. Don't get TikTok. It'll waste your life. And then of course the Michael Jordan Bulls Last Dance, ESPN. It's just so good. I was such a Jordan fan. I just thought he was the greatest. He is the greatest. He's better than LeBron. I'm sorry, it's true. And Westworld. I think they're the same ones I did last time, but I'm still trying to get through Westworld. Yeah, slow, very slow. Trying to get through it.
Westworld's kind of disturbing. It's very us against them.
Isn't that the way everything is these days?
Yeah, I mean, but it's disturbing in that it actually, the machines, I'm not giving anything away, but the machines are getting us, or at least in this show, the machines are having us really look at ourselves and what kind of a world we live in, created, And I think it's really good for that. I think it's really good.
Nice.
I've enjoyed TikTok as well, but I only focus really on the TikTok doc. Have you watched him, Mel?
No, I haven't seen the TikTok doc.
Yeah, this guy's name is Jason Campbell, and he's an anesthesia resident at Oregon Health Sciences. And he is like infectious. He started this only a few weeks ago, and he's become quite a internet phenomenon. And he dances, and he'll have like his attendings dance with him. And there's one where he's in the operating room with this other woman. I don't know what her job is, but they've got the surgical lights like bearing down on them. The lighting is fantastic. And they're doing like these short little dance moves. And evidently this has turned into quite a phenomenon. And it's very uplifting. It's very cool. He's he got me smiling.
Nice.
The Last Dance, I agree, was awesome. And I'm looking forward to it, although Sunday I'll be working. And then I also was watching Schitt's Creek. I guess it concluded, and I've been really enjoying keeping up on it. There's so much content on television. I sort of try and give myself an hour or two, maybe 3, on a loose evening where I can catch up on things. Another show that I was really liking is called Black AF. I'm not going to say the words because I don't want to get bleeped. But
as fuck? Is that what you're? Oh, I'm sorry, Mel. We're gonna have to cut that. Sorry,
yeah.
EJ.
You
Sorry.
can't.
You're streaming live. You can't fix that.
Oh,
fix that.
There's only 26 people watching, so hopefully none of them are small children.
Yeah, and so that's been a really cool show. It's very good. It's annoying. It's frustrating, but it's got an interesting formula and a lot of good sort of perspective, and so I've really been enjoying that as well. And
yeah,
Tom?
as a lifelong Laker fan, I have been enjoying The Last Dance, but I hated the Bulls. That was not cool. I feel like I lost some championships in there, but it's good to watch. A lot of it is the last season, but they talk about his ascension. They go through all that. One of the things that I've actually been doing is I got a free trial for this Quibi thing, which is a bunch of sitcoms that are 8 minutes long. It's an app you can get on your phone. And there's 2 that I really have loved. One of them was called The Shape of Pasta, and it's this pasta maker from a restaurant in your neighborhood, Robert, near Venice, a restaurant called Felix.
Oh yeah, Felix is great.
He goes to Italy for a month and with all these grandmas and finds all these lost pasta shapes or pasta shapes that are going, and he does 8-minute episodes on them, and it is just amazingly well done. It is such, and then he brings those pasta shapes back to his restaurant. And so you have all of these very rare and like dying pasta shapes from these little tiny villages and mountains in Italy. And that's the only place they're made by like 3 grandmothers. It's quite incredible. So that one was really good. And then Lena Waithe produced a 10 show documentary on the shoe culture, which is like Air Jordan. So it goes really nicely with the Last Dance. It's sort of about the beginning and end and where we are now with like the shoe culture and the releases. And then this week alone, Netflix has released Back to the Future Part 1 and Part 2, 2 excellent flicks. So if you're feeling a little bit nostalgic while you're home in quarantine, you can do that. And if you want to do some cooking, Gordon Ramsay's Ultimate Cookery course on Amazon Prime is really, I hate Gordon Ramsay, I'm not going to lie. This thing is amazing. It's like easy cooking at home, quick, easy things that look amazingly flavorful to put on the plate. So good at you, Gordon, for making that, and good for you, Amazon, for putting it out. Very nicely done.
Very cool.
Anything else?
Quibi is great. It's vertical and it's horizontal and it flips between the 2, but the content is short, but I've found it really, really interesting.
Very high production values. Like there's a show called Dummy, which is like this, the woman, I don't know, now her name is eluding me or whatever, but anyway, I feel terrible because I really love this show. And she basically has a relationship with her boyfriend's sex doll who talks, and all of this crazy stuff that goes on. It's called The Dummy, and it's really quite clever. That's a great show.
I have to throw in another one. I'm listening to an audiobook It's called Great Influenza. It's about the 1918 influenza by John Barry, and read by Scott. What is his name? He's so good. Scott Baird or something is his name. Anyway, the Great Influenza audiobook, fantastic. It's more than just about the influenza. It's about how medicine was sort of developing up to that point and the germ theory of disease, and it's really good. Super good.
It's Anna Kendrick in The Dummy, by the way. And I bet you that pandemic book is amazing. So I look forward to taking a listen to that. And again, we don't have anybody to thank. We have referral codes. Again, it's Laney 9300. So feel free, buy 15, 16 Model Ys, use Laney 9300. I'll be very grateful. And thank you to the Patreon supporters who are out there supporting us every month. We do have a Patreon channel. We've actually done a pretty good job of being on every couple of weeks too, which is pretty nice. And maybe next 2 weeks, the stream will only be for Patreon folks. I don't know how we can do that, but maybe we can.
We could do that. I think we'll do a little bit more streaming. We didn't tell anybody. We just sort of did this as a test. But I think it's pretty interesting to be able to interact in real time with some of the peeps watching. So I think we'll do some more of this if Tom cannot say the word AF, because there's a 4-year-old in the room.
Yeah, I'm sorry, turning short final. I apologize for that. Anybody on the chat want to throw before we go away? Any of you want to give us a media pick to share with the peeps and the show? All 25 of you, feel free.
I was going to say I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote. We do our next show on May 17th, a Sunday. Same time, 4 p.m. That's going to be. I don't know if there's going to be a Cars and Coffee or not, but that day, the Tesla Owners Club Los Angeles has a Cars and Coffee planned at 8:45 or 9 a.m. In Malibu.
Yeah, that won't be happening. And if it does, I won't be there.
But it's May 17th. So again, they're lifting restrictions May 15th. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
but are you ready to go out, man? Or do you feel like it's like lifting restriction means like we're good? Because that's not my impression.
So that doesn't mean I'm going to touch anybody or anybody's stuff. It just means that I'm going to go drive out to a parking lot. And while I'm at that parking lot, I'm going to talk to people. If I get within 6 feet of them, I'll put on a mask. In fact, I think we need to have some talking Tesla masks. What's up with this? We haven't gotten those yet?
Done.
Yeah, the talking Tesla Elon whenever mask. Oh no, it's Elon today. That's it.
Even a mask won't shut Elon up. That's what it should say.
There you go. Yeah, so why not? So on that Sunday, I'm hoping that number one, I go to see my friends at the LA Tesla Club Cars and Coffee in the morning, and see you guys at 4 o'clock for one of these, whatever, roundabouts.
All right, I like it. And maybe there'll be some SpaceX news at that point too. So we'll
yeah, like we'll be close to putting a man, it's a man at this point, on the space station. We're within 30 days of that. That's going to be big. Why are you laughing?
Because they're making fun of my long hair because I have like quarantine hair. Michael Thomas offered to send me his Flowbee because he thinks I could use a trim. And honestly, this is me actually after I cut my hair, to be honest with you. So
showing us how good you are at that.
I was afraid to like go too far, but I think the next time I'm going to give it a shot. You're looking very dapper, of course. And Mel, if I had Mel's hair, it'd be easy to cut because, well.
Oh, it's so easy. It's good to be told. Just put it on number one. All right, kids, we're to go do some exercise and have some dinner.
Good. All right, everybody. Thank you for all of you for watching, and thanks for all of you who will be listening to this. Stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, wash your hands.
I like it.
Ciao.
Bye.